Hey guys, disgruntled Mariners fan here. Just wanted to take a few seconds, take a few minutes, however long this ends up taking. I don't know. Might be here a couple hours. Who really knows? But just wanted to just take some time here just to kind of give my thoughts on what's just taken place. We're about an hour or so removed from the finish of Game 7 of the ALCS. And first off, I just want to say congratulations to the Toronto Blue Jays to advancing to the World Series. It'll be their first appearance since first winning their first one. It was either their first or their second back in like 1993, I think it was. That's what all the headlines are saying right now. Congrats to them first and foremost. Want to get that out of the way. But yeah, I just want to kind of get to the topic at hand here and just talk about the Mariners, right? What happened, right? Game 7, winner take all, winner go home. I think this is the first winner take all game the Mariners have had in franchise history in the playoffs, which again, not too many appearances as a whole, so a very unique experience and spot for the M's to be in just overall. It didn't go so well. It went great for about 6.5, 7 innings or so, and then yeah, George Springer happened. Let's just put it that way. Couple guys on. They take Wu out. They put Bizardo in. And I think it was about 2 pitches in. Gets one good hack, one good swing at the ball, sends it over the wall. And that pretty much did the Mariners in from that point on. Just for context, in case you didn't see the game, Mariners were doing really good through 6 innings. Pitching was pretty elite, most of what we'd seen most of the season. Kirby did great. He had about 4 or 5 innings or so, I think, that he pitched. I think he pitched, I can't quite remember. I don't have the stats off the top of my head. He did really well. He gave up a run in the first inning. Things didn't go so well in that first inning, but he only scooted one across, and he pretty much remained great for the rest of the game. He got himself into a couple of pinches, but I mean, really in the end, he didn't surrender any runs through at least the next 3 innings. So he ended up with about 4 innings at the end of the day with only 1 run surrendered. And during that span, we put up a couple of runs. And then towards kind of the middle to latter half of the ball game, you get a homer from Cal, which puts you up 3-1, and all of a sudden you're putting yourself in a pretty good spot, right? I think it was 3 homers that the M's had. Julio had a homer, I think Naylor had a homer, and then Cal had a homer. I might have that slightly off just a little bit, but again, it's just all kind of a blur to me right now. Just kind of an instant reaction to what happened over here in the past hour or so. But, you know, that was what they had, right? And you got to give the Mariners credit. They really did play to their strengths, right? This was a team that, whether it was a blessing or a curse, which I think it was a bit of both at the same time, lived and died by the power swing. It was either going to be a flyout or it was going to be a homer or a strikeout. It's going to be one of those 3 things all the time. The Mariners were never really going to be a team that was going to be putting the ball in play consistently and just hoping that stringing some of those together was going to give them a bunch of runs down the stretch. It was never really going to be that way. It's just a bummer that in a lot of the other games where they put up a bunch of runs, they just never had anybody on base at the time to capitalize, making it a 2-run homer, a 3-run homer, maybe even a grand slam. We saw that in Game 5 from Gino, right? One of the greatest Mariners postseason games of all time, by far. But it kind of pales in comparison, right? So kind of what we're feeling right now. And I get it. We're all upset. I'm bummed too. Part of me wants to cry, part of me wants to be very angry, but part of me wants to also feel just a tremendous sense of gratitude, right? You know, the M's have almost never gotten this far. It's very rare. Can't remember the last time they were 1 win away from a World Series. You'd have to go back, oh man, easily probably 20 plus years. Probably, I don't know about the 0-1 season. I know they did really well. Again, that was the Sweet 116, probably the mid to late 90s, I want to say. They got pretty close as well. Obviously, the famous 95 season, in which Edgar effectively saved the team with the rest of the roster that year from the team being sold, just in a spot where no one really knew if baseball was still going to stay in Seattle or not. So it sucks, it hurts. I have no script, or nothing like that. So I'm just kind of going off the dome right now. But it's tough. I see a lot of negativity going around right now, and I certainly can feel the same way as well, and I do to some extent. And here's the thing that goes along with that. If, the reason why I think so many of us feel disenfranchised for so long is because for 49 years, the Mariners, they just finished their 49th season, just ended tonight through 2025. The Mariners have been like really, really good for maybe, if we're being generous, 3 to 5 of those 49 seasons, I would say. Effectively, all of the seasons in which the Mariners made it to the playoffs, had some sort of playoff run. Those were the years in which they were really, really good. And to be really, really good as a Seattle Mariner, much less as a team as a whole, for the most part, you're setting that bar pretty low. Especially when in 49 seasons, you've only made the playoffs a handful of times. You can pretty much count them on one hand how many times the M's have made it to the playoffs. That's how few times they've really made it. And still to this day, as of this loss, this evening on October 20th, 2025, they have still yet to make it to the Fall Classic. They've never made it to a World Series. They're the only team in Major League Baseball to never, and maybe ever, hopefully not ever, but never appear in the World Series. It has never happened. Every other team, regardless of how good or how bad they've been right now, and look at the Colorado Rockies, right? 19 loss season. It was way up there, right? One of the worst losing seasons of all time. They've still made it to the World Series. They've still been there. Again, you look at all those other teams that have maybe had a 20-plus year, 10, 15-plus year playoff drought or whatever, and they've at least appeared, right? There's still a handful of teams that haven't won. It's very true. But we're the only team that can lay claim to both of those things. Not only have we not won a World Series, we have not made a World Series. And unfortunately, after 49 seasons, that trend still continues to this day. The Mariners will enter a 50th season next year, still not having made the World Series. And that hurts to say that. But the one thing that I can say has really helped over the years, and this would be my advice to Mariners fans all over the world, much less those that live here in the Pacific Northwest. My advice to you would be to try to become somewhat emotionally detached, right? If you don't care, you don't care, and it is what it is. Do whatever you want. It's your life. Live it however you want to. That's fine. My recommendation, this is some advice my dad told me, and I think I'm going to really heed it after the way this season ended. And the big mistake I feel I made was that I got way too emotionally attached to this team. I don't feel like that was entirely a mistake to some degree, but in the end result and the way things ended up, it hurts a lot more now than I think it would have if I hadn't been that way. And, it's part of that's just experience, right? It's kind of like someone that's, we all have different perspectives on everything, right? And most of that's going to be based on our experience, right? It's going to be what our parents tell us, what our friends tell us, what those we trust tell us, all in our own experiences. All our opinions and everything are shaped on that, right? It's no different here, right? If you're a Mariners fan, if you're a diehard Mariners fan and wish the best for the team all the time, you know that if you're, not to say that those that don't do this aren't smart, but for the majority of fans, you have to have some level of cautious optimism all the time, no matter how great the result is, because you just know that as a Seattle sports fan, something bad is going to happen at some point in time. And we know that because of experience. I know that because of experience. Again, as insanely excited as I was as they went from the ALDS to the ALCS in 5 games, I just knew that even with all the matchups on paper and everybody, all the talking and saying, the Mariners should trounce the Tigers. They're going to give the Jays a competitive matchup, even though the Jays are a contact team and all this kind of stuff. Even with what everybody else is saying, right? Even when the world thinks you should win, we, the fans, are the ones that know best how this team is going to do. 9 times out of 10, because we have lived it, we have experienced it, and we have been there for the highs and lows since the beginning. We know how this goes, and Well, the ones that know best at the end of the day. It's like you and your body, right? You know exactly how your body is at the end of the day. You know when something's wrong because you feel that it's off. It's the same thing with the Mariners, right? It's the same thing with most Seattle sports teams, if we're being honest about it. Kind of getting a little bit off track here. Kind of getting back to the game itself. Yeah, the game itself went really well for the most part. I think in terms of kind of some of the analytical aspects of it, one thing that I might critique a little bit, I thought Dan did. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter after kind of looking just initially at a lot of the reaction that's been placed from a lot of other disgruntled Mariners fans, and those are pretty upset right now. A lot of people are saying, fire Dan Wilson, fired him, he messed the whole thing up, and this and that. It's like, Dan can't win you the game, guys. And I understand that certain decisions allow you to either win or lose the game. And the business of sports is about that all the time. I get that. I understand that. But the players, the ones that are actually swinging the bat and have the gloves on their hands and the hats, those are the guys, those are the ones that win and lose the game. Like, you can have a bad play call, and I understand that could be on the coach and all that kind of stuff, but I thought Dan, for the most part, he managed a pretty good game, I'd say, all things considered. But I do think that there was one move that, or maybe lack thereof, that he made that might have been a bit of a mistake. But I think, personally, when you get to that point of the game where Springer's at bat, just to, again, give some context here, there's a couple runners on. I think there was only maybe one out or so at the time. And the Blue Jays had rolled up to the top of the lineup, right? So George Springer's up to bat. He's the number one hitter in the lineup. Couple guys were on, and Dan Wilson makes the decision to pull Brian Wu from the game. Now, again, for context, people say, well, Brian Wu was hurt. Why was he pitching all this stuff? Okay, here's how it all went down. George Kirby started the game. He pitched, I think, about 4 innings or so. Brian Wu comes into the game at about the 5th, 6th inning or so. He pitches at least 1 to 2 innings or so at this point. So he's got some good pitches in. He's got some reps, and he's doing really good. Hasn't surrendered a run. And then we get to the point of George Springer being up with a couple guys on, and maybe an out, maybe no outs. I don't quite remember, but he makes the decision with a couple guys on to play, I would assume, is the matchup game, and he pulls Brian Wu in place of Edward Bizardo. And so what happens next, right? Well, he throws one pitch for a strike, it gets fouled away, or he swings and misses. I just remember the first pitch being a strike. I was tracking it through MLB Game Day. I was listening to the Mariners 710 ESPN broadcast, not the national broadcast, none of that stuff. Didn't want to hear any of that. I just wanted to listen to the Mariners cast. And then one pitch later, I look on the screen. It's a blue dot, which if you ever watched MLB Game Day, means it's a ball put in play and there's no outs. There's a little graph in the corner which tracks all the players' movements in live time, also tracks the ball. What do? I see that blue dot. I look to the left. I see the arc. Keeps going, and goes over the wall. 4-3 Blue Jays, bottom of the 7th. And now the Mariners have only 6 outs left to try to score at least 1 run. They had only 6 outs left to put up at least 1 run just to tie the game at that point. Would not even take the lead, just tie the game. And you could kind of just feel the energy and kind of feel the vibe just be sucked out of the team in that moment. That was certainly the way it was for me in that moment, for sure. But that just kind of felt like it was it at that point. And I say that because, again, it goes back to that experience of knowing how Seattle sports teams work, right? It's very rare when you get to that stage of any sort of sporting event, right? Say the Seahawks had a big lead, they give it up at the end, can't go down and score a touchdown to take it back or win the game or whatever. It's the same kind of vibe if the Sonics had blown a 20-point lead, if the Seahawks had blown a big lead or anything like that, or if the Sounders had a 2-goal lead and they give up the tie, or if they had the lead for 85 minutes of the game and then in the 93rd minute of stoppage time or whatever, they give up the goal and it ends up being a tie game, ends up being a loss. It's that same kind of vibe, that same kind of feeling that we've had for so long with so many with so many of the spots that our teams have put themselves in. It was the same thing that happened here. So that is the only real decision I think with Dan I might disagree on, just because you've got a slightly more experienced and I think a guy with a bit more of a better arsenal in Brian Wu that's taking on Springer in that situation. I don't know what was going through Dan's head. I haven't watched the post-game presser on this. I'm sure he was questioned to oblivion with some of the decisions he's made. I get it. He's in hot water, at least for the time being, over that stuff. That's all going to be taken care of by him. I'm just giving my perspective on this. I'm not here to report on Dan Wilson's findings or anything like that. But it did feel like that was the one spot where you're kind of like, why was this decision made? I'm not too sure about that one. Then obviously at that point, you got to put your best guys in at that point because your season's on the line. You have to get a run to stay in the game. But not much happened after that. I think there was maybe a base hit or two that happened in the 8th or the 9th. I think Randy got a hit or something. And then, boy, that last at-bat was brutal. I mean, the last inning was really brutal, especially for the Mariners. Back-to-back, well, not back-to-back, but both Leo Rivas, who led off the inning, and Julio Rodriguez, who ended up being the final out to end the game. Both of those guys got into a full count. And then when I watched the game day graph of the strike zone that was there, of course, that could be different than what the strike zone could have been. We all know that the zone is different than the actual, zone that's on the broadcast or whatever on game day. It's always different. But on the zone, you could see, like especially for Leo Rivas, on a 3-2 pitch, got a fastball that was maybe about 3 or 4 inches above the zone, still swung at it and struck out. And that was how the Mariners started the 9th, a swinging strikeout, and then I think the next batter popped it one into, grounded out to third or something like that, and then Julio comes up to turn over the lineup for the last time. He gets to a full count, does an impeccable job of getting there, and then a slider not even close to the zone, and he hacked out and missed. I saw a tweet actually of someone that actually posted Julio's at-bat. All 6 pitches that were thrown to him, not a single one was in the zone. Not one. And Julio's a very young player. This is his first time with any level of playoff experience, so I don't really expect, at least playoff experience to this degree. So I am not exactly expecting him to be especially experienced. And that's the problem with Mariners teams, right? Every time they get into the playoffs, it's a novelty, right? So none of the guys that are in that spot, unless you pick up a guy that came from another team that was in the playoffs a lot through like a mid-season deal or, off-season signing or whatever, most of the guys that are there aren't going to be guys that have a bunch of that playoff experience. And so that playoff mentality, that ability to stay calm under pressure no matter what the circumstances are, it's not there for most guys. And it's not their fault. It's just that the team is never good enough to be in a spot to where they can consistently calm their mind and be steady in those moments of when stuff really matters the most. You're able to rise to the occasion. There's a lot of young players on the team that, it's hard to get into that spot, And people can say what they want about Dipoto, and I certainly have my thoughts on him as well. You go back to the 54% win comment. Still one of the most boneheaded things I think I've ever heard any sports figure owner of any given kind say. It's one of the silliest things I think I've ever heard in just the history of Seattle sports. But it was a major win picking up both Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez, getting him back. Yeah, I mean, the guy was a clubhouse leader, and they absolutely needed him. I think he brought a great vibe back to the team, which was kind of what we knew we were going to get him for, right? Sure, he had his insane homers that he had for the season, and that really kind of dipped off when he became a Mariner. That was kind of expected, though, right? We have the hardest ballpark in all of baseball, for the most part, to homer in. And that's not even so much because of the figures, it's just because of so many aspects about it that make it so hard to get a ball out of. And that's just kind of the way it goes. But I don't really know. Like I said, part of me wants to cry. Part of me wants to be really upset. But there's also a part of me which I'm hoping overrides the other two feelings, that just feels eternally grateful to have been alive to witness something so historic that Seattle sports, much less the Mariners fans and its franchise, doesn't really see very often. We're kind of like the black sheep in baseball, right? And, the media and kind of treats the Seattle sports area as kind of like this foreign thing that shouldn't be talked about and should be left alone and should be reprimanded and all this kind of stuff. Right? No one likes to speak really good about Seattle a ton. They're just kind of like those people off to the side that no one really wants to talk about. And I think it's just partly because Seattle is the most geographically isolated sports city really in all of the US, right? I mean, it's just, it kind of just sits off on its own, right? And pretty much all of the neighboring states, most of them don't have an NFL team. Most of them don't have an MLB team. Some have MLS teams. They've become, the expansion that's gone on recently, they're getting more teams out there, obviously. And now we're the only team in the area with an NHL team now. We got the Seattle Kraken a few years ago. So more and more people in places like in Nevada and Montana and Oregon and then sometimes in the Dakotas, although I know they like to flock to Minnesota more and Green Bay and places like that. And like Idaho too, they want the people that are diehard sports fans, they want to find a place to kind of get their kick in, to get their fix of professional sports. And Seattle, geographically speaking, is the closest region to them that they can kind of get that for. I don't know. You just kind of have to, it's like anything else in life, right? Change sucks, and certain outcomes in life suck, but you just learn to move forward with it. It's not the ideal result that you want. It's not what you hope for at the end of the day, but it's like everything else that happens in life, right? You just got to learn to move forward. That's all you can really do. So yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this really. I don't feel like anybody else really is going to do something like this, but I don't know. Maybe this is a level of cope. Maybe this is just my way of processing it. I don't really know, but I like to feel like on one hand, I'm kind of embodying the feelings of a lot of Mariners fans. At the same time, maybe it really is just me. I don't know. Maybe it's only my feelings about it, and maybe everyone else feels completely different than I do, or maybe there's some people that feel similar to the way I do and are just kind of in a weird spot, kind of where I'm at, where we're just all kind of just trying to figure out what the heck just happened. Why did it happen? Why does it always have to be us and all this kind of crazy stuff? And so, I don't know. If you're a Mariners fan, if you're a Seattle sports fan, just know it's not the end of the world. Tomorrow, the sun will still rise tomorrow. We'll still be kicking it. We'll still be okay. To all the bosses, to all the managers out there, please be patient. Please be kind with your subordinates, coworkers, whatever you want to label them as. This is going to take some time for us to process. It's certainly not going to go away in a day. Might not even go away in a week. Yeah, it's going to be tough though. No matter where you are, kind of on the spectrum of being a Mariners fan, it's gonna take time. It's gonna take some time, and just know that that's okay. In my heart of hearts, in my opinion, you are not crazy for taking time to process as big a loss as this is right here. It was the same way for me. This feeling that I'm feeling right now is very similar to the feeling that I felt in Super Bowl 49 when Marshawn Lynch was not given the ball at the 1 yard line, 2 yard line, whatever it was. Okay, I don't like bringing that back up, but again, if we want a comparison as to the current feeling that I am feeling right now, it goes back to that. Okay? And the silver lining to that situation was that we had won the Super Bowl the previous year. That was the silver lining for me there. In that moment, that was the best way I could process that. So I don't quite know how else to process this right now, knowing that. But what I do know is I'm still alive. God's still on the throne. And I'm going to still wake up tomorrow. And I'm still going to be me. I still get to live this amazing life that I'm still gifted with. Like I said, I've said it a bunch of times already, but we just got to find a way to just keep pushing forward. We can't stay stuck in the past, right? We can have the opinions that we want, but I think at the end of the day, all we want at the end of the day is we want what's best for the team, right? We want what's best for the fans. I still believe that we have the best fans in baseball, to be honest with you. I get the whole George Springer situation. I was not made privy to that. I'm not 100% certain kind of what was going on because I was traveling with my family at the time. We didn't watch game 5 or 4 or whatever game it happened in where Springer either got hit by a pitch or something or other. I'm not too privy to that, so just pardon my ignorance for that, but staying away from that, I still think we have probably the best fan base in baseball. We're the most loyal fans, I believe, out there. And maybe it's due to insanity. Who really knows? If we're going to define insanity as, the same outcome happening over and over again, yet you're still doing the same thing, yet expecting a different outcome, yet the outcome stays the same. However it goes, we'll still, at the end of the day, be there for our team, right? We're always going to be there for the Mariners. I know we are. Part of it's because we have no choice. At least if you're, I believe, a true fan. But, we'll be there for you guys. M's fans, if you're ever watching this, if you ever get a hold of this, just know that we're always there for you. It's been a heck of a ride. We thank you for it. We're always we're grateful for it. We appreciate you for it. My only hope/concern is that the ownership, those in power, I want those guys to stay with us too. You guys matter just as much as the players do. Okay? I'm talking to ownership right now. You guys in the front office. You got to be there for them first. Be there for your players and be there for us. Okay? Build off of this season. Okay? This is one of the greatest seasons in all of Mariners history. Regardless of the result, yes, it's heartbreaking, but I don't know if they've ever made it this far. This is truly uncharted waters that the Mariners were in for most of this postseason. And they broke, broadcast records for the Game 5 ALDS and a whole bunch of other stuff that was going on, and that was great. That just kind of was the icing on the cake. But, okay, seriously, ownership, you got to listen to this, man. The fans and the players really, really, really do care about this team, okay? And it's very easy for you guys. I understand. You guys are the one with all the brass. You got all the money. You got all the power. I get that, okay? It is really easy to sit there, roll over, and be like, okay, we had a good season. We've had some success. Now we get to be mediocre for another 49 years. No, you don't, okay? Take the high road. Don't be like ownership groups in the past, especially throughout the 2010s, that came in and just siphoned money off the team without giving a hoot whatsoever about how well the team played. Do not be like those guys, okay? Continue investing in this team, re-signing guys that make an impact, analyzing how everybody is doing. Make the team better each and every single day, okay? Continue to improve on the offense. Get more bats to round out the 5 through 9 slots in the lineup, okay? Get some arms that can continue to do well, okay? Keep developing well in the farm system. You've already got a really good pitching system as it is already. Even with some tweaks made here and there and some losses in other places, you've still got a solid unit of players ahead of you. You still got a great team to field out there. But it needs a little bit more, okay? And I know that you guys see that. And more importantly, you have the money to be able to make it better. So go out and do it. Do the fans proud. Do the players proud. And make this team a World Series caliber team. Make this franchise a World Series caliber franchise. You have the ability to do it. So go out and get it done. Because I believe you owe it to us as fans. For almost 50 years of seeing this team be around, you owe it to the fans of yesteryear, the fans of today, and the fans of the future. To go back and reminisce on where we are now, to appreciate the greatness of this team, of where it is now, and the greatness that it can continue to be moving into the future. But that's only if you guys continue to invest in this team. The players are invested. That was made painfully evident this year. They were about 6 to 9 outs away from a World Series for the first time in franchise history. They were that close. So don't use this as an excuse to back out now. Don't flash your 54% of games argument, all this kind of stuff, being like, oh, all right, now we get to just take all this money away from the team, take it away from the fans again, jack up the ticket prices, all this kind of stuff. Don't do any of that, okay? I know you can, but I also understand that and you guys understand too that you're in a spot to where you know you can be better than that. Now is your opportunity to win some brownie points with the fans by continuing to make moves and continuing to benefit the team as a whole. And as an extension of that, benefit the fan base by putting a better product out on the field. We're almost 34 minutes into this recording, and I feel like I've just given like a State of the Union or something. I don't know. Anyways, all that to say, disappointing finish to the season. I understand that. Everyone else around here understands that. I'm still wearing the M's hat. That's not going to change. Still going to be repping their gear. That's not going to change. Still care about the team. Still care about the franchise. It just didn't come all together this year. And that happens. It is what it is. And we know that it just especially hurts for us because we've never been there. It's never happened. And we yearn for that each and every single day. And that's fine. It's okay to be hopeful as a sports fan. It's okay to desire your team to do the best each and every single day. It's okay to be hopeful. What it's not okay, though, is to be delusional. We got to stay away from that. There are plenty of fan bases out there that are just straight up delusional. We don't want to be like those guys, okay? And that is why, when you know how far this team has come and how long this team has been around, I believe the best way for us to go forward from this is to have cautious optimism. Okay? I truly do believe that that is the best place that we can go from this point. That is the mindset that I'm going to really adopt at this point. I'm not going to ever really fully invest in the Mariners ever again until they make it to the World Series. I'll keep an eye on them. I'll keep an eye on the next star player that pops up, the next Julio Rodriguez, the next Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh for MVP, by the way. There's no other argument. I'm not going to entertain it. Cal Raleigh for MVP. It was the one mistake that I made this year that I don't ever plan on making again. And that's getting too emotionally attached to the Mariners. I feel like I put a little too much of my identity into them, and then when inevitably kind of let me down in the end, not being able to make it to the World Series, that's kind of what's put me where I'm at right now. So that was my mistake. I don't plan on making that mistake again. So if you're a baseball fan, if you're a Mariners fan, if you're a sports fan, whether you're an M's fan or not, just tuning into this just out of pure curiosity, I appreciate you tuning in. Just please be kind. Please be kind to us as fans. Please be kind to the M's organization, our players. This is just a disgruntled fan, someone that's been a fan of the M's ever since I was born back in 2001. I go back to, when I was little, being in my mom's lap, back inside old school Safeco Field, going to Mariners games when I was really young. So I've been a fan of the team all my life. Never plan on changing fan allegiance anytime soon. I plan on being a Mariners lifer at this point in time. So I don't plan on that changing, but just please be kind, folks. We have gone through it a lot as Seattle sports fans when it comes to the Mariners. I understand a lot of other franchises go through it rough too, so I know that we're definitely not alone with a lot of other franchises, especially NFL franchises out there that have yet to make it to a Super Bowl and all these other kinds of things. And I get it, that argument's out there, but just please be kind to Mariners fans. If you're going through Twitter, if you're going through Facebook, commenting on YouTube, things like that, because we're all going through it right now, and it's not easy. I'll flip the coin on that too. If you're a Mariners fan right now, and you're going through it much like I am, take a few seconds to understand that that's kind of where your head is right now, if that does apply to you, and try not to do anything too rash, okay? Don't be rage baiting and commenting on Twitter and posting on Instagram and YouTube comments and TikTok and all this crazy stuff. Don't do any of that. Don't buy into the hate, okay? What happened, happened. What's done is done. I've said it before, I'll say it again. What's happened has happened. All we can do is accept what's happened and move forward. That's all you can really do. Unfortunately, we cannot get onto the field and physically change the outcome of a game. That's not possible. And we all know that none of us are good enough to pull off what the Mariners did this entire season and this entire postseason. There's not a single one of us that could have gone out there and done that. So it's not like we have any leg to stand on in terms of, oh, well, I could have done that, or I wouldn't have swung at that, or I would have been better. Come on. You know and I know that neither one of us would have had a better chance at any given time. Especially with how quick fastballs are nowadays. Geez, triple-digit fastballs, we got no shot, fellas. It's just not going to happen. So, all right, if you made it this far, thanks for taking the time to, I don't know why you would bother, but thank you again for taking the time to hear a disgruntled Mariners fan out. Take care, you guys. We'll see you all next season.